we did see Joker, and I would like to talk about
Yeah.
Joker hysteria. I personally, first of all, really liked this film.
Me too.
I'm a fan of the Batman universe. Batman's my favorite superhero, and let me tell you why. He's just a human being. He doesn't have superpowers. He's just a genius, and he's rich, and he's got good principles and morals, and he fights for justice. But he's also a little twisted because he witnessed his parents being murdered. Batman is real. He's epic, and I love Gotham, and I love the whole Batman universe. Okay? Now, Joker, I thought...
I've always loved Joker too on its own.
I mean,
such a great character.
Joker probably is one of the, if not greatest, comic book villains. I mean, most iconic, even in just popular culture, right? Joker is just awesome, and nobody's ever really tackled a Joker origin story. It's always remained a total mystery. And what this movie attempts to do is tell an origin story about Joker. Now we have to remember that this movie, because it tries to take a realistic look into the life of this man who becomes Joker. It's in Gotham City. We are in a comic book setting. Of Gotham is this, just the city is in ruin. It's like over the top, just oppressive. It's like everything bad about Metropolis in New York, because it's really set in New York, times 50. It's like Great Depression level of poverty, and
I loved also how they made the city look, and just...
It was obviously New York, but you felt like you were in Gotham City, which is awesome. And then what was really... I'm trying not to give away major spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, I think I'll try my best not to give away major spoilers. But what I love the most about this film is that... So it's a lot about Bruce Wayne's father, Thomas Wayne. And in the Batman stories, we always hear about Batman's father as this great philanthropist. He was trying to save the city. He was like this great, infallible, incredible man that was murdered at the hands of a petty criminal, the very person he was trying to save in Gotham, right? But what we see is actually... the other side of the coin. What we see is
like a more realistic,
right. He's a greedy, arrogant businessman who looks down on the poor and the criminals and the destitute. He is an upperclassman. He's a snob. He's power hungry, and we even get to see what's the butler's name? Alfred. We even get to see Alfred. Who idolizes and protects Bruce and raises Bruce in the stead of his father, who's also kind of a douche too, kind of a snob. They're elitist. They look down on the lower classmen. And Thomas Wayne is running for mayor, and you see, at least from the perspective of someone who's on the bottom rungs of society, that this guy really is really not looking out for them, at least from their perspective. And to me, when you look at the Joker mythology in Batman, he's basically a cult leader. He has all these worshipers who dress up like clowns and do his bidding and get him resources, and they basically do his master plans. And what you see is kind of an explanation for how the Joker becomes a cult-like figure with followers and worshipers who are willing to join his movement. It's not even really a movement. He's really an anarchist in the film. He's not political in any way. He's just an anarchist who's kind of just broke. He's just broke by his upbringing, by his society. And I thought, first of all, I really liked seeing all these classic tropes from a different perspective from the Batman universe. And what struck me the most is I just kept hearing about how he's like incel and promoting violence, and what struck me is just how I didn't see that at all watching the film. He, to me, strikes me as a typical anti-hero. I mean, he's just an anti-hero. He's a violent criminal. He's a murderer. He's just a total lunatic.
Anti-hero or villain?
He's not a villain in this story. He's an anti-hero. I wouldn't consider him a villain. But
you can see how he became a villain.
It's a slippery slope. They show him kind of getting lost in the sauce, as they say. But
But it starts.
But it's a relatable descent into madness, which I like. You see how it happens. And I didn't really see the film condoning his behavior. I didn't see them making any political statements. I certainly didn't see the insult thing, because there was a moment where he was involved with a woman. I liked that dynamic. They didn't force it. They just did it enough. They didn't play it up to a point where it was obnoxious. And then when something happened, they moved right along. Never was he violent towards a woman or incel-y or even mention sex or even having negative opinions about women at all. I didn't get the incel vibe at all. People say it's overly violent. Not really. I mean,
that part I don't get.
It wasn't really overly violent, if I'm being honest. The violence was very tasteful.
I mean, I thought it was like dark and bold, I guess, to make a video about him, but that's what I like about it. I thought that was awesome. But people love all the Marvel movies, and there's violence in those. I don't get what's the difference.
Indiscriminate violence. His violence had meaning.
I don't understand why this one is different.
It was part of the plot. You know what I mean? It wasn't just he was just indiscriminately bloody and murderous. I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed the film. And something I noticed about it too is that if you go to like Metacritic or Rotten Tomato, it has a very low score, like 50, 60%. But if you go to IMDb, it's like number 15 of all time. So the users, the audience loves it. The critics hate it, which is something I noticed happening a lot more. I wanted to read some of the comments from the critics, because this is what I went in with the expectation of seeing stuff like, let's see, New York Times. We are now at the phase of the argument cycle what actual ticket buyers have a chance to see what all the fuss is about, which means that it's also time for me to say my... He says, are you kidding me? To be worth... This is too much, dude. This is too much. The New Yorker. The result is a movie of cynicism so vast and pervasive as to render the viewing experience even emptier than its slapdash aesthetic does. Joker tries to question the exploration of mental illness for entertainment and the consequence of society abandoning its weakest members. But the film is, in turn, exploiting mental illness and using it as an excuse for Arthur's nefarious actions. This feels tone-deaf in a way where mental illness is being wrongfully linked to mass violence in the U.S. The film is aware enough to draw from great film about toxic masculinity and loneliness, but not enough to critique Arthur's behavior, instead of painting him as a helpless loner driven to violence by forces out of his control. Dude, I don't see any political statement in this film at all. Like, I think these critics are reading too deep into this.
That's what I think too. Like, it's just a movie.
Also, don't tell me what you think about it politically. Tell me, did you enjoy the film?
That's what I was gonna say.
It's like, bro, what are you talking about?
It's an artistic form of art, and the actor did so good. I just enjoyed it. It was an amazing performance by him.
I agree.
I thought the aesthetic was great. I don't know what they're talking about. I enjoyed everything. I don't know what.
Time Magazine says, Joker wants to be a movie about emptiness of our culture. Instead, it's a prime example of it. I disagree. We're talking about Gotham City. I don't believe they're trying to make an allegory for our society in any way.
Yeah.
I really don't think so. I think we're talking about Gotham City. We're talking about the Batman universe. Why are we so desperate? Why are these critics so desperate to make this political? I didn't see it. In America, there's a mass shooting or attempted act of violence by a guy like Arthur practically every other week. Wrong. I don't think that they're saying what he did is okay, by the way.
Right.
And by the way, what he did wasn't just a random act of mass violence either. He didn't just go in a random movie theater and start shooting people up. Mm-hmm. It was, in most cases, in the first incident where he murders 3 people, is the result of them, in his
watch it.
Yeah, but again, it's not random acts of violence. It's just not. at least up to the lead up of the development of his character.
So, Zach and Ian, did you guys watch it? I know Dan hasn't.
And finally, the Times Magazine, I want to read this one. He says, he could easily be adopted as the patron saint of incels. That's so stupid. And, you know, I feel bad for Joaquin Phoenix because and the director, they're catching shit. Like, Joaquin Phoenix is trying to do interviews and promote the film, which, by the way, is doing awesome. It's going to make like $1 billion worldwide. The studio, I read, was nervous to even fund the film. They gave it a super low budget to even try to discourage them making it. And now it's made them $1 billion. And people in interviews are trying to ask Joaquin Phoenix, like, he walked out of an interview, I think you know about this, Dan, where they were asking him about, like, how does he feel about, does he feel like he's encouraging violence and shit like that? And he's like, no.
He said, why would you even ask that? Or something?
Yeah, why? What?
He was asked if he was worried that the film might perversely end up inspiring exactly the kind of people it's about. He was just like, what do you, and he walked out.
It's not about any people. It's about
why is
the
it
Joker.
different with this movie? People are watching so many superhero movies all the time lately. What is different? There's always a villain. The villain is always crazy.
I think it's because it's the protagonist. The villain is the protagonist in this case.
But that's what's interesting about this movie.
Just people are babies. Like they can't they've been kind of, their brains have been ruined by the Marvel movies. It's like if the subject of the movie isn't a good guy,
it reminds me of that
Right.
really dark version of the X-Men.
Oh yeah, the Good Guys on Amazon. It's called The Good Guys, right? The superhero.
Oh, you're talking about The Boys?
The Boys.
The Boys.
So good.
Yeah.
So great. Why didn't that show catch shit? Maybe it did. I don't know, but I love that.
It got a little bit, but I think it flew under the radar too much.
That show's amazing. I can't wait for season 2.
Yeah, seriously.
Dude, we're talking about the Joker, the most infamous criminal of all time. I personally love, my favorite types of villains are the ones that they can develop in a way that makes you sympathetic to them, makes them relatable on a human level, because that's what real villains are. They are relatable. They're not just evil for the sake of being evil. They have motivations and they have justifications, and they don't see themselves as the villain. That's what good writing is. That's what good character development is. Things are not black and white, and that's why I love seeing it from his perspective. Obviously, he's a violent criminal. He's the Joker. Fucking babies, like you said, Dad. They're just babies. He's not the patron saint of insults. He never talked about anything like that. He was a total anarchist. Because at the end he goes, do you support the protests and the riots and what's going on politically? He goes, I don't care about any of that. I'm just here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's not political. Anyway,
Sounds like you're saying he's a nihilist more than an anarchist.
He's a
right?
nihilist. He's an anarchist. Exactly. Sure. There you go. What did you think, Ian and Zach?
I thought it was one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. I'd classify it with like Silence of the Lambs or. What? I thoroughly enjoyed that film.
I did too. To be
with
honest,
the music, and it was amazing.
I agree. I thought it was great. I was fully satisfied by the conclusion of that film.
It took components from different films and it just made it. I don't know. It was so good.
Also, it's so cool that you can take someone like the Joker and make a somewhat serious cinema from it.
Yeah, I thought Joaquin Phoenix did an amazing job.
You know what I'd love?
So good. I loved it.
Yeah.
You know what I'd love to see is this be the beginning of a Batman series with Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker.
That could be cool.
I would love that a lot more.
Could be
than
wrong. I feel like he already
Avengers.
ruled that out, though. Unfortunately.
Oh, I want that so bad.
I think he views himself as too serious of
Joaquin
an
Phoenix.
actor to do.
But I wonder if there's a way to continue the series in the same artful way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that
it would certainly be better than the fucking other DC movies they've been making, like the Man of Steel and all that garbage.
That's all hot garbage, bro.
Yeah.
But Ian, you didn't really
Ian
care
had
about it,
reservations.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just like, I was all right. I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm not like, this is Silence of the Lambs' greatest movie I've ever seen. But, like, I mean, I had a good time.
Did you get incel vibes?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think it's as insane that they're jumping to that, but I think that they're being extra critical of this movie, and I don't really understand why, because a lot of movies do that.
Yeah.
And have anti-heroes, so I don't know.
Yeah, I really don't know why that's what I didn't understand.
Yeah.
They're laying like this super heavy criticism against this film that seems like you could say that about a lot of films, and I don't know why they singled out Joker specifically.
It was more of a mental illness film than anything.
Right. That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think, because it's not really a serious comment on mental illness either. It's a very exaggerated, incredibly wild. I mean, the guy is really just the victim of circumstance throughout his whole life. I mean, like a minor spoiler here is that his mom is mentally ill. Well, maybe I should actually. I'm not going to go where I'm going, but. I don't really see it as a serious commentary on mental illness either, because then people are going to lay criticism. Oh, well, you're going to say that mentally ill people are. I don't know. I loved it.
I do think they were attempting, at least on some level, to get that point across. So with the difficulty of getting his meds and things like that, and the program being shut down and all that stuff. So I feel like they were trying for some sort of commentary there.
That's true.
And you know what I loved about his costume, his getup? It was so simple. Like there wasn't.
I love his costume.
Yeah, the costume was awesome. And then, like at the end, when he finally dons this persona of Joker, he just dyes his hair. It's a little purple. It's not really purple or green. I mean, it's like very realistic. He puts on the paint. I love that scene where he's painting his face and he paints his tongue. You know?
Yeah.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah, it wasn't any bells and whistles. It was just to the point and cool.
RogerEbert.com says, as social commentary, Joker is pernicious garbage. So there you have it. The critics unanimously hate it. Yet it's number 15 greatest film of all time on IMDb.
I mean, that'll go down. New movies are always very inflated.
It'll stay on that list, though.
It'll probably,
It'll stay high on that list.
If it's peaking at 15 early on, it will, it'll drop down maybe 100 or so, but it'll
Joker, IMDb. Let's see where it is right now.
Let me ask you, how would you compare it to like the Heath Ledger role of the Joker?
Well, it's so different. It's like a whole different thing. Like Heath Ledger was number 13 right now, Dan. 8.9.
Pretty wild.
And that's with 361,000 points.
Yeah.
Heath Ledger's was... I guess I could see Heath Ledger as a continuation of Joaquin Phoenix in a way, because if you kind of skip ahead 15 years from where that movie left off, I can see in some ways that character being a continuation. But the one criticism I did have of the film is that the Joker is supposed to be a criminal mastermind, a genius. I mean, Batman is like, they say, the greatest detective that ever lived. Batman is a genius.
Yeah.
He is an incredibly smart investigator. And so this his portrayal of the Joker was really not, he was not by any means a mastermind. He was not by any means, in my opinion, a rival to Batman. I mean, the Batman that we know from the comic books would just absolutely own this guy. But what they do in this film is that they set this movie about 15 years ahead of when Thomas Wayne was murdered and Batman watched his parents die. So what I think they're attempting to do is to give time for him to develop into...
What do you mean?
Well... The Joker and traditionally comes up at the same time as Batman. So Batman comes up and Joker comes up at the same time.
Like they're around the same age, you mean?
But what happens in this film is that the Joker makes his first appearance when Bruce Wayne is like 10 years old. So it's a little different timeline. So I'm supposing that they're saying that he's somehow going to be developing into the Joker that we know, because he has 15 years to kind of get his crime and cult down. But I had a hard time imagining him as a rival to Batman.
I did too.
I had a very hard time. That was my only criticism of the film. Because
I kept thinking.
I wish they would have made him like just have a little more genius or something. Because he is just kind of a pathetic, slow, just kind of a victim of circumstance. And I don't know. The Joker is definitely not any of those.